Hello and welcome to the video. My name is Cam Ward and today we're going to be breaking down the Golden Child. What we're talking about today is a short spec commercial, more of like a little test project really, that I wanted to do after picking up the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. Also, if you haven't seen the Golden Child, again, please be sure to go check that out first. It's only 30 seconds or so, but yeah, let's break it down. Now, a lot of you have been asking me how I made this project, but it was actually incredibly simple, so I'm going to keep this video as short and concise as possible. And essentially, a photographer called Fariz, his Instagram handle is Kuik Photos, was talking about this project, and it was just something he wanted to go and shoot for fun. So I figured it'd be a good time to test out the BMPCC4K in a studio environment. And this video was really just made to accompany his photo series. And yeah, it was a really cool little collaborative project. We shot it at Temple Studios in Manchester in the Northern Quarter. If you're ever around, be sure to stop by because we do some really cool shoots there. So I'm going to be breaking this video down into three sections: the gear we used, the lighting, and the editing process, and that includes the color grading as well. And as just a quick side note, I do have a few of the LUTs available that we used on this project. They're all custom built for the individual projects, so whether they work on your project, you'll have to see for yourself, but I've kept them super cheap, so you know, it's a great way you can help me out by supporting the channel. And if you find the LUTs useful, that's also a win as well. So let's get straight into the good stuff. What gear was used? So for this project, I obviously shot on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. I used the Canon 2470 f2.8 Mark II, and I also used a half Pro Mist filter. Now, the Pro Mist filters are one of my favorite little lens filters to use. They just give a little bit of extra pop, especially when the light hits them just right. They really are excellent. Moving on from the camera setup, we also used an Aperture 120D Mark II, and we didn't use this light too much. It was only for a very select few shots, but the main lights that I was using here were two RGB tube lights. Now, I've mentioned I'm going to butcher the name, Nguyen Guang RGB tube lights before, but they really are exceptional. I love these little lights. They're pretty cheap and you can use them in pretty much any position. We've used them on a lot of different shoots before. I couldn't really recommend them enough. They're excellent. You can also charge them up and you can also plug them in. So we just had one on a stand, we just left it plugged in, and the other one we usually used it handheld. In terms of camera settings, I generally stuck to about 400 to 800 ISO. And the aperture was probably kept around f4. The majority of the project was shot at 75 frames per second in the widescreen format, and I believe the compression will have been about 3:1 or 5:1, probably 3:1, just because I was testing the camera, so wanted to give that a go. But overall, incredibly pleased with the image out of this camera. It was dead easy to use. Yeah, just very smooth and responsive. But if you want to know my full thoughts on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, please be sure to go check out the review of the camera. So I apologize for not having more behind the scenes photos of the set and the lighting setup. The few images I have got, they're a little bit limited, but they kind of give you an idea of what we were doing. Essentially, as you can see here, we had one of the RGB lights set up on one side of our actor or actress, and then usually I would have my gaffer just move the other one just to create a bit more of a dynamic feel within the scene. I find that moving the lights and having them just moving for stuff like this where you can be a bit more experimental, I just think it just looks cooler, to be honest. It just livens the shot up a little bit more. By keeping the lights moving, sometimes you find shots in there. And as mentioned, the Aperture 120D just behind the camera, just above our talent, with a honeycomb grid on it. Again, didn't really use it too much. I prefer to keep it a bit darker, this project. Having those contrasting colors of the two RGB lights, I just felt it gave a better effect. So I've got to say, before we get into the edit, I've been having a ton of issues with the B-Raw or the BRAW plugin from Blackmagic with Adobe Premiere. Now, as mentioned in my review, when I bought the camera, the license for DaVinci had already been used. So I didn't really make the move over to DaVinci. I'm much faster inside Premiere when it's working. I am probably going to make that move over to DaVinci at some point because Premiere has just been trash. Like, to be honest, I'm kind of getting a little bit fed up with it, especially with the fact that they're not truly supporting BRAW. You know, it's when you work with the R3D file, it's an established codec. It plays fine. There's no issues with it in Premiere, but it just seems a bit weird that, you know, the Blackmagic codec isn't truly being supported here. So my initial plan was to go through the initial project file for the Golden Child. However, Premiere doesn't seem to want to work with the BRAW plugin as usual. I believe it's probably something to do with Adobe Premiere updating because it's just garbage. I basically just put all the clips back into a clean timeline, clean project file, so we can kind of just run through a bit of the grading process. Just to kind of go over quickly the edit and style, I wanted to be a little bit experimental with it. I wanted a cool track which was just kind of a bit different, and so I went over to Music Bed. Usually I'll use Artlist, but I think Music Bed just offer a few more unique sounds. As you can see with the edit, it's very minimal. There's not much going on there, but let's run through some of the color grading. So as you can see here, all the footage is ungraded. This is just the Gen 4 color space. So we'll switch that over now. We're in Gen 4 here, as you can see, 800 ISO. This is the LUT that I used. It's called the Golden Child LUT. I built this LUT inside of DaVinci Resolve. You can purchase the Golden Child LUT. I'll leave a link in the description below to that LUT pack because I'm a YouTuber and I have to have a LUT pack. So I wanted to go for a bit of a heavy contrast here. A LUT is not going to save your footage, right? The key thing with your footage is lighting. You really want to make sure on the day that you get your white balance correct, and the lighting needs to look good to begin with anyway. If we disable the LUT, you can see like, you know, it's not going to take as much to get it there anyway. You know, you could add a little bit of contrast, drop the shadows a little bit, bring up your highlights a touch, and straight away it's already looking good because it looked good on the day. So if you can, try and nail it on the day, but you know, having the flexibility of a raw codec gives you that ability in post to push and pull the colors if you don't always have control over the lighting. As mentioned, I'm at 800 ISO here and I'm not really seeing much noise at all. But yeah, people were asking me how I got such like clean shadows and stuff, but that's it. I just kind of kept it dark and then emphasized it that little bit more with the color grade as well. Why I maybe went for Gen 4 over Gen 5. Gen 5 looks great as well, so we just switched over to Gen 5 color space. And I think it does give it a little bit more of a smoother, softer look. For me, again, this was one of the first projects I shot with the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, so I just found that Gen 4 gave me an easier point to work with from the start. But I just preferred it. As you can see, it's much darker, a lot more contrast, the colors are popping a bit more. You could achieve that same effect, obviously. It'd probably take you a bit longer working in Gen 5 because it gives you a more flat profile to work with from the start. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like I said, there's not too much to this shoot. I'd love to go into more detail, but I'm not sure what else I could talk about. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, please be sure to hit like and subscribe. You can follow me over on Instagram at CamWardFilm and see some of the stuff I'm getting up to day to day over there. Also be sure to check out the vlogs. I just post a whole load of mishmash of content and different videos in there. And if there's something you see in there that you want to see a breakdown of, then just let me know. As mentioned, I'm going to be doing more of these breakdowns moving forwards, hopefully in a little bit more detail with a few more behind the scenes pictures and images and maybe some video as well. As always, thank you so much for the continued support and I'll catch you in the next one.